Thursday, February the 9th, 2017, and this is your Barbados Today afternoon update. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Thanks for joining us. Topping the news at this hour, the Barbados Private Sector Association is today calling for an urgent coming together of the full social partnership aimed at implementing already identified socio-economic solutions to rescue this country from further decline. In a statement issued today, the private sector body warned that if nothing is changed, this would open the way for everyone to break for themselves, which is a recipe for disaster. One short-term solution suggested was for government to accelerate without further delay implementation of the efficiency committees of the social partnership, which could advise on any programs for privatization, mergers, or outsourcing. The corporate sector said this was not the time for partisan political thinking or advantage seeking by the private sector and trade unions. The organization contended that all must band together and reject devaluation as they did 25 years ago. One of the island's leading consumer advocates has raised the possibility that the most recent petroleum price increases may be part of profiteering to assist the sale of the Barbados National Terminal Limited to the Sol Group of companies. Director General of the Barbados Consumers Research Organization, Malcolm Gibbs-Tate, asked if this was why the country had been told to progress at a reduced pace when considering renewable energy. Gibbs-Tate said when one compared the prices of gas in the U.S. and Barbados on January the 6th, consumers are now paying $11.26 per U.S. gallon in Barbados. He noted that petroleum prices in Barbados have just risen by 20 cents per litre when compared to the last price decrease of 13 cents on January the 2nd. The consumer advocate said it is difficult to understand this increase given that the price of crude oil on the world market does not justify such a hike, if any at all. Nurses in Barbados are crying foul of the conditions under which they have to work. Retiring president of the Barbados Nursing Association, Blondell Mullin, told its annual general meeting at the Aqua Beach Resort last night that in some cases, colleagues' workplaces are being burglarized.
The geriatric hospital had issues with burglary and security issues. Main doors not locked at night, and intruders use it to hide and steal nurses' property. Most of the institutions, especially psychiatric hospitals, have a whole host of issues, including the physical plant and supplies and having adequate material and equipment to deliver adequate nursing care. There is also the issue of late salaries and uniforms and working long hours and double shifts. At most of the other institutions, nurses are concerned about appointments, especially staff nurses, as this causes problems monthly with the late payment of salaries as well as obtaining a loan at our financial institutions, and the list goes on. If nurses cannot be compensated and paid due to the economic challenges, at least their working conditions should be better.
Regional health officials have begun a two-day conference in Barbados to draw a plan to tackle childhood obesity through improved food and nutrition security. The February 9 and 10 talks are being hosted by the Caribbean Public Health Agency in response to growing concerns that up to 30% of the region's children are overweight or obese. Executive Director of the CARFA, Dr. James Hospitalis, says it will not be an easy task, but they will tackle this epidemic head-on.
No country in the world has turned around an obesity epidemic at national level. You can find countries that have done something in tobacco, hypertension, traffic injuries. No country in the world has turned around an obesity epidemic at national level. But we in the Caribbean, in the process of cooperation and health over the last 20, 30 years, have faced major challenges and been first in the world to do certain things, such as the elimination of measles in the 90s. So why shouldn't we be the first in the world to turn around the obesity epidemic, beginning with our children?
In sport, today is the 9th round of matches in Group B of the Regional Super 50 tournament in Barbados. The feature match brings together the top teams in the group, leaders Barbados Pride and second place Jamaica Scorpions, starting at 1:30 p.m. at Kensington Oval. Also, Guyana Jaguars are facing ICC Americas at the 3Ws Oval.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Get your paper, get your paper. Only 225, 220. Who? For where? That's the Bear Stale News. I don't read about that on Barbados today since last night. That can't only can't do. 220. Who?
The Barbados Today, news you can trust.
We're back with news from the region now. Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness has announced measures to tackle the recent crime wave affecting parts of the country. The plan comes on the heels of recommendations made by the National Security Council and follows an escalation of murders and abuse of women and children over the past few months.
The government will be using existing laws, which include preventative detention in live and imminent situations of domestic violence, of sexual abuse, of grooming of minors, to remove aggressors from the scene, thereby de-escalating the situation.
In Guyana, a wheelchair-bound man accused of murdering a Durban street waitress and wounding a former magistrate has been remanded to prison. Javon Vickery was at the courthouse and filed this report.
The Better Hope man arrived in the cabin of the police van in a wheelchair, while relatives of the slain woman hurled remarks. In Court 3 of the Georgetown Magistrates Court, George was accused of murdering Deborah Blackman, who was a waitress at a Chinese restaurant in Durban Street, Wortmanville, on August 23, 2014. In addition, George was also charged with discharging a loaded firearm at former magistrate Mohammed Fazil Aziz with intent to commit murder. Attorney Melville Duke, who represented George exclusively on the murder charge, explained that his client suffers from a spinal injury after being shot in neighboring Suriname. The attorney argued that there was no eyewitnesses to the crime for which George was charged, adding that the 3-year-old video evidence was of poor quality. Bail was refused, and George is to make his next court appearance on February 16.
On the international scene now, President Donald Trump's nominee for the Supreme Court has described the president's attacks on the judiciary as disheartening and demoralizing. Neil Gorsuch's comments were made to a Democratic senator and confirmed by his spokesman. The president called the judge who halted his controversial travel ban a so-called judge and said any terror attacks on U.S. soil would be his fault. The ban on arrivals from 7 mainly Muslim countries faces a legal test.
A court in Massachusetts temporarily halted President Trump's executive order, allowing those affected to fly to the US again. But then a week later, in a victory for President Trump, the same court ruled that that travel ban was back on. But it only took a day for the executive order to be blocked again, this time by a court in Seattle. Lawyers there argued that President Trump's travel restrictions would hurt their economy because they relied so heavily on immigrants.
The law is a powerful thing. It has the ability to hold everybody accountable to it, and that includes the President of the United States.
President Trump has been tweeting his support for his law, and his administration say they'll fight all these legal challenges.
And it's just frustrating to see a federal judge in Washington state conducting American foreign policy or making decisions about our national security.
So we can expect these court rulings to go backwards and forwards. Whoever's on the losing side is likely to appeal, and so on. It could take months for this case to eventually reach the US Supreme Court, the highest law of the land.
And that's news and the sports. But for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. Also subscribe to our e-paper email updates and like us on Facebook. We are also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, or screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you, as well as Channel 99 on Flow TV and Mix 96.9 FM. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Have a fantastic day.